Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the TEMSEA Leadership Podcast. My name is Eric Claus, and I have the honor to be able to be your host. In this episode, I have a conversation with a fantastic leader and Chief of Robertson County EMS, Mr. Brent Dyer. Brent and I continue the theme of self-care as we discuss some lessons learned from a horrific mass casualty incident he was recently part of. I know this conversation is going to add value to you. So sitting across from Brent Dyer, truly awesome to be able to be here on your turf. I'm super excited to have you. Thank you for being here, buddy.
Well, thank you for making the drive up here today.
It was a beautiful drive. Early in the morning, so absolutely perfect. And Brent, I've known you for 15, 16 years, maybe longer.
It has been quite a while.
It has. Yeah. I have been a fan. I love sitting in the room when you do lectures. And
likewise.
We've shared the stage with some leadership stuff. My favorite topic.
Yeah.
So
we've been blessed, haven't we?
We absolutely have. Yeah. So. Yeah, man, I'm excited. I know this podcast is going to help a lot of people, and we're just going to have a conversation. I know it's going to get heavy about some things, and that's okay.
Sure.
But really, before we sort of jump in, for those that don't know you, which everybody in the state of Tennessee...
Well, I don't know,
but walk us through your EMS journey.
Sure. Well, man, I tell you, for whatever reason, I knew what it was that I wanted to do as a kid. I don't know why, but I knew. And perhaps it was purpose. I don't know. But in my senior year of high school, I was in EMT school. And then I got my first job, regional ambulance service. Right at 18 years old, man, I was ready to go, you know. And then just in no time, I think I was hired by Wilson County Emergency Management Agency, WEMA, and I was there 12 and a half, 13 years. I worked some part-time over the years at Smith County and at the emergency room at Summit. And then I guess it's 2012, somewhere around in there, I went to Nashville Fire Department. And after a short time there, I was transferred over to the training academy. Since 2007, been adjunct faculty there at Vol State in the Health Sciences Center of Emphasis. You know, they teach Con Ed and all that kind of stuff. And for a few years, I was training officer up here at Robertson County. And then 2015, I guess, I took a role there in Sumner County after my dear friend Mike Anderson passed away.
Yeah.
He was their training officer. He and I used to go down to Meharry Medical College and teach the young physicians together. And he was more country than I am. And so when he and I would show up, boys and girls, we're here to teach y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, here we come to teach y'all about, resuscitation. They'd look at each other like, what in the world is this? 30 minutes later, when he would be teaching, the smoke coming off their pencils. They was taking a lot of notes. They loved it.
Yeah.
And we loved it. But after my dear friend there left us, I had the honor of fulfilling his position. Man,
that's a lot to me.
That was a great opportunity. That was a very honorable and humbling experience to get to do. So I served there for 8 years as a deputy chief of training and clinical issues for Sumner, and this and that, and here we are. Just this past October, I took a role as EMS chief here in Robertson County.
How has that been for you?
Man, it's been really cool because
a big step, a big change, right?
Probably 18 or so years ago, I remember working up here as a part-time EMT when I was going in through medic school, and under the director chief at the time, Jackie Wilkerson.
Yeah.
And back then we didn't know what we made. We didn't care. He loved us so much, and we loved him, so we just come to work, and we enjoyed it. And we try to bring a little bit of that back up in, and it's been really good so far.
So new into the chief role, director role, what's been the biggest eye-opening thing from transitioning to now being lead?
Well, I tell you, I used to be pretty good at being able to help people learn, how to be very solid at their, all the medical side of things. And I feel like if I'm not careful, that some of that's going to slip away from me. The more I seem to learn about budgets and writing policies and things of this nature and the politics,
Yes.
it seems like the more I learn about that, the less I seem to remember about PALS and pharmacology.
Yes.
So I told Barb, our training officer, I said, I got to get on that ambulance and put that paramedic shirt on before I get too rusty.
I think you could recall it at any point. Yeah, when
I would hope.
when you certainly have to. Well, congratulations on
Thank
that
you.
achievement.
I appreciate you.
You have worked so hard for that, and you and I both have
Right.
been under the guidance of incredible mentors,
Oh,
and
man.
isn't that so important for what we
Oh,
do
wow.
and leaning on our
It
brothers
is.
and sisters that came before us?
Our network is one of our greatest treasures.
Yeah.
It really is. People may not realize the power of that, and who you attach yourself to.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. And, not only for leadership, but in life.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Professional life, personal life, spiritual life.
Yeah, everything.
All these things. Yeah.
And that kind of is a great segue into really why we're here today and what we're going to talk about. And it's probably important for everybody listening to this to, just kind of summarize what it's been like for the EMS community, the first responder community, and the healthcare community in general. We are recording this in April of 23, and probably over the last 3 weeks, our area, Southeast, and across the country, where we hear things that are in the media, have been hit so hard with multiple mass casualty events. And you guys dealt with one of them, and we're going to talk about that. But I wanted to put in perspective for everybody listening on about a 72-hour, 96-hour period on what happened. So your call was on a Sunday morning, if I remember correctly. Right. And you had a total of, it was a mass casualty incident with 6 deaths, many of them pediatric deaths. You and I spoke about 24 hours later. It was early Monday morning. I had reached out to you. We're going to talk about that phone call in just a minute. And we were talking, and hours later, me and my medical director are north of Nashville doing a training, and we got notified of the school shooting. So I went back to campus and had an opportunity to interact with many of the crews, hospital staff and pre-hospital staff. And that was a tough, week. And then before that and after your event, there have been a lot of other mass casualty events. I think there were a total of 3 helicopter crashes within a period of about a week. One in Kentucky, one in Alabama, in Arkansas, in other areas, the tornadoes. So I think, Brent, I could describe when I walked into the ER, just following the patients arriving at the shooting, the weight and the environment was like you felt the heaviness. It was so much pressure. And it was tough. And you had, shared a concern when we talked that, you really want to do something. It was like, I got to get you on the podcast and we got to talk. But Brent, let's go back to the scene that you guys worked.
Sure.
Let's talk about that. And we'll go as far as you want to go with this.
Yeah. That particular day was a Saturday, 2 weeks ago now. And it was nice. It was nice. And it had just been, sometimes it's just busy, just kind of sort of, typical stress, but just a busy week. So thankful to have a day off. Saturday came, know where we had to be just yet, and I was out on the porch early that morning, and had the dog out there, and just took a sip of coffee, and had been in an old rocking chair just for a few minutes, just kind of chilling, man, just in a little peace and quiet. And then I found out, and I got a call, said that, hey, we got two fixing to possibly have to have 3 trucks shut down. And then some sickness, we had a couple people out on FMLA issues, things of this nature. And we had a supervisor I had sent off on specialized training that I wanted them to get. So with those call-outs and all that, the way it worked out, I said, well, it's a Saturday. It's probably going to be kind of busy, nice weather. So myself and actually our training officer and then one of our captains came in, and we staffed ambulances. And, we talk about servant leadership.
Yes.
And we don't ever need to be in a position where we become either too good or afraid to do the work of our people. Plus, it helps to exhibit our own competencies. So we staffed the ambulance, and I knew, I don't know, brother, I had that, we get them gut feelings.
Yes.
But I oftentimes don't want to verbalize that.
100%.
Because I don't want to speak something into fruition.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I thought, well, we've made it all this time throughout the whole shift. Maybe we're going to get by. Maybe I'm not going to have to go out here and actually knock the dust off that paramedic license after all. We had went on 5 calls, Barb and I, before the evening, fairly slow. We got canceled on every one of them, except one, and there's an assault kind of guy who got a refusal, so hey, man, we went on, laid down. It'd been a minute since I had slept at the station, so, it's 6'5" and a big fella, I always had trust issues with these little twin beds in these EMS stations.
I get it. They're not comfortable anyway.
Yeah, and when we ordered some not long ago, I made sure and bought the metal, heavy duty ones just in case that I actually worked. What I'm saying? There was a couple of them little wooden looking beds. Brother, I just didn't trust them things, So it's like, man, about 2 o'clock in the morning, tone went off. And you know how it is when the other truck's up. None of us forget that. You can get a little rest, because hey, they're up. Well, the tone went off, and it was a medical call.
Okay.
They didn't even check en route. The tone went back off. And it's saying that we're second truck due, I-24, MVA. It was initially called in by crash detection technology. We get en route. We get out the door pretty quick. And Barb, she's driving, and we're going in through there. And I had told her, I said, ain't we a sight? Here we are here at 2 o'clock in the morning running this ambulance down Highway 49. And I was really, hoping that the other truck get there. Hey, no injuries. Y'all cancel. I thought, man, we on this cancel streak. We're doing good. Fire apparatus, first fin apparatus got on the scene. There's a little rescue, 2 guys on it from Pleasant View Fire Department, volunteer fire department here. And their situation report, you could tell in their voice, but they were cool, calm, and collected. Very impressive. But what they said when they gave a sit rep on the number of patients they had found already and the conditions they were in, they were saying we have multiple apparently deceased, some of them very critical. We're trying to do what we can. We need more help. We'll need more units. And they said, multiple pediatrics, multiple ejections. And I'm like, oh wow. And for a minute, I thought I was dreaming. I checked myself because I thought this is a nightmare. And, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm dreaming that I'm at work. Then it sped up with me just real quick, and I realized, no, this is reality. Then I remember the thought come across me, oh, we're fixing to be doing this. And I immediately felt thankful that I was one of the people actually on the ambulance with Barb. I thought, well, I remember thinking, okay, well, in that first 10 ambulance, I knew they had some considerable experience. And that made me, I was thankful, that people had never thought this is fixing to be bad. And so I immediately kind of started worrying about her folks. And Barb, she said, did they just say what that? She repeated what they said. I said, yes, ma'am, they did. And she and I didn't even say anything else to each other until we pulled up. We pulled up, we got out, and they already had some of the, children covered over. And of course, we went ahead and, not that we didn't trust everybody, but we wanted to make for sure. And, start triage versus regular jump start triage specific to pediatrics, you give 2 breaths before, just pronouncing somebody as a black tag or as deceased. So, man, that's a lot of, you look at, you're trying to do all those things right, and, you teach on it and teach on it and teach on it. So, it's one thing to teach on it, it's another thing to do it and try to remember to do it right. I had one critical, salvageable adult that was in the back of the ambulance. They said, man, we need help. And so hopped up in there and just went to work. And you know what? You're right. It's like riding a bicycle. Those strong paramedic skills, they don't fade, thankfully, as much as one thinks they might.
Yeah.
And so that's difficult because I knew, but I trusted Barb. She went out there and she reconfirmed. And unfortunately, there was nothing else that could be done. And as soon as we brought in air medical, so Life Flight 3, Justin Holton was one of the personnel, and he's a friend of mine. When he he stepped up into the side of the ambulance, I said, brother, I take up a lot of real estate. I'm a big fella. I'm going to get out and let you come in and talk to the crews. We've got the lady RSI'd, successful intubation, a lot of trauma, a lot of facial trauma, these sorts of things. And but things did good. Paramedic Wade McCarroll, he and his partner Rupert, AEMT Rupert here, they did a really, really good job, man, with that poor lady. And when I stepped back out, Barb had already ran ECGs just to confirm. And she was covered in mud. I mean, it was all over her. And all the way up her legs and were just covered with mud. And I said, what are you, And so I realized that to access some of these patients, some of them were just in the mud, and they had to get down, and then it was so bad, the mud was, it went all the way up to their thighs. And a couple of the personnel, when we got down in there, just double checking everybody and doing secondary searches, all these things. We was losing shoes in the mud. So we was out there walking around barefooted for, where I say with our sock feet a couple times. And it's like you say, when you walked into the ED, that sense of heaviness, and after that helicopter lifted off, and all you got's just the roar of those diesel engines, there was silence. Nobody was saying anything. Interstate was shut down. Every now and then, the westbound, the eastbound lanes that were still moving, they would go by, and them folks, I remember thinking, those folks traveling eastbound, they have no idea what's happening over here on this westbound side. What's sitting over here right now, and thank goodness they don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank goodness they don't. But I tell you, we talk about that, and you want to do something to get these. You want to just pick them up and hold them. You just want to pick them up and clean them up.
Yeah.
And put them somewhere safe instead of having them laying out here. Of course, investigation, THP, in charge, and have to do their investigation. We're not going to disturb that, and we got ME's office en route and all these things. And you still trying to process, man, what is happening here? Am I forgetting something? What else do I need to be doing? Are my people all right? And all these things. And Cheatham County came to us. They transported one of the stable adults involved. So a total of 9 patients. I'd say 1 critical adult, 2 stable adults, and then 6 deceased. And of those deceased, at least 2 of them were still in diapers.
Yeah.
And I remember noticing that. But all this, you talk about these things or those environments, and walking into the ED there like that. The Bible speaks, I believe, about situations like this. It calls it the valley of the shadows of death in the 23rd Psalm. And what I want people to realize, and what a little bit of wisdom may be able to share here, is there is some key words there. And I speak on this sometimes, and I've heard it spoke on, and I just want to share it. And it talks about the shadows, and in this valley of death, and the rod and the staff, comfort you. Well, what people need to realize is that a shadow cannot exist, no matter how dark something is, no matter how much darkness has been brought, either at the hands of evil or at the hands of just a horrible tragedy, accident, whatever the case may be. A shadow cannot exist without some degree of light. And oftentimes, the darker something is, even the smallest light stands out the brightest. People that do what we do for a living, we're bringing the light. And you don't necessarily have to be the light, but you can at least just be the mirror that spreads it. So no matter how minuscule that you felt your role was, no matter how little you felt you could get done in such a situation that was so busy, very task-oriented environments, right? No matter what your role was, you were still a part of the light, And the other thing that I'll share with this, and I won't let you say something here, brother, is the other, before I forget it, because I'm feeble-minded.
We share this trait.
I sound like Hank Hill, so if you could edit some kind of fancy software that takes away the country accent, brother, you go for it.
I would never do it.
But hey, it's part of the character. Is what he is, But here's what in all seriousness, I do want people to know this too. When we go out here and we have a great outcome, these things that have happened recently are some of the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
It's unimaginable.
Yes.
Actually. When something good happens, and it's a miracle, sometimes we call things miracles. We call things, it's a big win. We celebrate, we give awards, and that's good. And we need to keep doing that. But when we do that, when somebody gets a ROSC, or we get a save on a cardiac arrest patient, or, go here and you deliver a baby, you get to be there when new life comes into this world. And you get a front row seat to that, man, how cool.
Yeah.
But when we have something good that happens, nobody struts through the ER, nobody comes strutting through the fire hall or the EMS station with their chest stuck out. I did that. You don't see any of us going around taking single-handed credit for something that the team was a part of. And that's good. We wouldn't want that, right? My point here is we do not single-handedly carry the honor solo when something goes right and when you are able to save a life. So when we are there and life has been lost, not one person should ever single-handedly feel like they take ownership of that darkness. It's not theirs to own, and it's not theirs to bear on their own shoulders. even if something didn't go right. Oh, you dropped an ET tube and you had to take 10 seconds extra to go out here and open up another 7.5,
Right.
whatever. Nobody's getting hypoxemic here, nobody,
Yeah.
these things happen, okay, and people don't need to be out here beating themselves up over failures and things of this nature, and they don't need to be taking solo ownership of the bad stuff. Yeah.
I think one of the things that you mentioned, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions about
Sure.
that, is I think we inherently do that, where,
Yeah.
especially new in our career, where we do take it personal,
Mhm.
right? And our performance, and we're critiquing that, but you bring up a great point. That's where we need our brothers and sisters to help. As soon as we isolate ourselves, the good and the bad, that is where we need people around us. So walk us through that, Brent, with why you made that comment, because that came from experience. What have you learned on a deeper level?
It did. We have very high expectations of ourselves. We have been entrusted. We have been given the gifts and talents to fulfill very powerful purpose with what we do in life. And how blessed. I think a lot of people out there who become depressed and overly anxious sometimes, I believe a lot of times they are just lost in the discovery of their purpose. Now here's where I'm going with that. Is, so aren't we blessed that we have found our purpose? And then some of us have been so blessed and so entrusted by our Creator that we have not only discovered our purpose, but we have found a position in life where we can lead others to their purpose. That's like the high. You look into all this Maslow stuff, and that's like the highest point, of the pyramid, transcendence. But here you go, and you get to this point, and we have such high expectations of ourselves. We are the kind of people, we like to fix it.
Yes.
We have all these tools, all this training, all these resources, but yet I still can't do nothing for this little child over here helplessly laying in the mud. I got a whole advanced life support ambulance sitting there, and here stands Mr. Pediatric, wants to go all across the state and help teach about pediatrics.
Yeah.
You know how useless and helpless I felt.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, people, I'm honored, and they, be able to go out here and help them with their registry test and all these things. And I'm sitting here thinking, all this knowledge and all these experience with skills, and there ain't nothing I can do. And man, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow. But here, that is just, I don't want to say it's part of it. It's an unfair part of it, because we train, and we train so hard, and we stay so prepared. And so folks have a hard time with that when it gets to that point. And it's like, okay, it's over with now. There's nothing left that I can do, or maybe there was nothing I could do to begin with.
Yeah.
And I tell you, that really is that's where the destroyer, your Creator, puts you, out here to do these things and to help tend the flock as the sheepdogs of our communities. And the wolf and the destroyer, that's, kind of some of my generic terms, for heaven and hell, the Creator and the destroyer. And but the destroyer will come along at that point in time, and he'll use those cheap shots on you to start getting in your mind, or to start kind of attacking your heart, because we're such passionate people about what we do and our incredible agape love for others. If we feel that, if that gets a little weakened because of these horrible things that we're exposed to, that's when those moments will happen, And we have to be wise to this. We have to be wise to that we don't need to allow those moments of darkness around us, that's when we need to be the strongest.
Yeah.
We need to bring in that force field, of that network.
So with you're an amazing leader, and I know your team and everywhere you've served are thankful for everything you've done. Your crews that were on the scene, there was a lot, right? There's the police, law enforcement, there's first responders, there's fire. So after the events, generally speaking, how have the crews been? We're about 2 weeks post-event.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've learned from that?
I tell you, I believe we have come a very long way with how we mitigate things like this. You and I both remember a time, as well as many people here listening to this, we all remember a time where you would manage a call such as this, or such as these shootings, such as these tornado responses, the helicopter crashes, and you would just, when your shift was over, you would just go home, and you carried that stuff to the house with you.
Yes.
No wonder ER nurses and physicians and paramedics and EMTs and firefighters and police officers have some of the highest divorce rates. No wonder that some of the people, the people wearing the uniforms and the stethoscopes around their necks are some of the most broken folks out there,
Yeah.
No wonder.
We carry the weight.
Yeah. We carry this unfair weight. And brothers and sisters, it's not ours to own.
Yeah.
It's not. And but this being said, one of the things I was very proud of is Barb and a young lady here named Emily Hughes. They head up our CISM process. CISD, different people call it, but the stress management, the critical incident stress debriefing. When the call was over, everybody who wanted to come and could come went to Pleasant View's Fire Hall. Very nice facility, had a lot of room. We had people, specifically trained people, who came out early in the morning. Now, by that time, it was like 7 a.m.
Okay.
And led an initial debriefing. And then just a couple days later, we had a big group meeting out at our dispatch center and brought in everybody with the state's debriefing team, the state's CISM team. And I'm here to tell you, and then also there are some resources that are out there. Some good friends of mine, Patty and Gil Carter with Crossroads Mission Care. They both have very extensive histories, mental health counseling, but now they've retired and they've devoted their time now. They actually, for free of charge, will help counsel first responders, people. And then if you need more, they easily help you work with, your insurance or whatever to establish with someone a provider and build that relationship. But that, and I asked, and I got some really good feedback from our crews. It's like, that is what we need to keep doing on this kind of stuff. And then we don't want to worry everybody, don't want to just keep bugging people, but we have tried to do our best to check in and set reminders and check in and just call folks.
Yeah, the consistent activity. Brent, this is a powerful question, is there are some people that are listening to this that can only imagine what it's like to be on a mass casualty scene. They've trained and they're doing it and they're preparing for that. And then you have the other type of people that have been involved and maybe the stress is, weighing heavily on them where they haven't been able to unpack it or unload the backpack. So, share some final words with us about, encouragement, because you're an encourager. Just being around you is, you just feel better. Yeah. But what could you share with everybody and, giving them hope and encouragement for those listening to this for have dealt with it or will be dealing with something like this in the future?
Well, fear and love are two of the most powerful human emotions that we know of. And you dive off into some of the research on those, they talk about it, shows the amount of cognitive ability that you lose when you are in love, or when you love something or so passionate about it. And we are the kind of people, we love human life. And then the other emotion, fear. Fear can cost you up to about half your cognitive ability. So we have to set the fear. Here's one of the things I think that scares people the most, is who emergency medical providers, all the way from the physicians, down to rookie EMTs, is the fear of failure. The fear of failure. When people come in and they're new paramedics, one of the first things I tell them, when I was training them or nowadays hiring them, tell them that I want you to fail. You're going to fail, and I want you to know that we welcome failure. It's part of the CQI process, And I tell them, don't seek perfection. Seek progress instead. Seek progress, not perfection. We're never going to be perfect. Our Creator was the closest to perfection that we'll ever see on earth. And, we just celebrated Easter there. But grace, give yourself some grace. And those of us who do look over CQI, and, then you get into accountability if there's mistakes and all this. Those of us we don't need to forget where we came from. People are going to make mistakes, and mistakes are necessary. Brother, I want to share this. Wisdom is a byproduct, wisdom is the byproduct of learning from failure, learning from mistakes. So I tell people, you'll never ever become wise if you haven't made some mistakes. Lord knows I've made mine. And so that's why I say some failure and mistakes are necessary, So otherwise you never have opportunity to learn from it. So that being said, these things are not going to go perfect. 23 years of experience, a list of, credentials and all this, out the yin yang, and, someone that I'm so blessed to be able to help a lot of people in the state already and all this, but yet there I stood, almost knee deep in the mud, helpless. You're never going to be able to be perfect. And I'm sure there's things we didn't do right. When I saw the expression on the face of my friend and brother, Chief Gilmer, with Nashville Fire Department, he's Assistant Chief, Operations Chief down there, David, incident with the school in Nashville. And some of those folks, and I've heard from some of the folks that's been down there, good friends and colleagues. I know how they feel. Now, not necessarily because that was that's at the hands of evil. What in the world, These things are hard to process, brother. So, but it's never going to go perfect. And a lot of times people will be too hard on themselves because they don't feel like they function perfectly. They need to let go of that. That ain't going to happen. And we don't expect it as an industry. Leaders need to make sure that they tell their people that they don't expect them to be perfect. They just expect them to progress. And what we're going to do is we're not going to perfect our way through this darkness. We're going to progress our way through this darkness. We're going to give each other a little grace. We're going to give each other some patience. And we got to give each other a little agape love. And before we give it to each other, we got to give it to ourselves. And that's what I can leave you with.
I am so grateful that I was able to share this conversation with you. Also, don't forget to check out the TEMSEA website for current information about July's conference. It will be a conference that you would definitely want to attend. Until next time, remember, be intentional about your leadership journey and lead yourself well.